Serious? People who were bullied throughout junior high to high school. What made you a target and how did you end it? I had a skin condition on my scalp that made my hair fall out. I ended up getting a pixie cut in 8th grade to even everything out. I was bullied and called lesbian and butch dyke endlessly for the rest of the year. And strangely enough, it was the group of goth and emo kids that bullied me the most. I was shoved into a locker and pushed down the stairs on the same day. I ended it by switching school districts for high school. Goth and emo kids bullying someone different. Talk about some frickin' irony. When I was my junior high years, I had no sense of fashion or style. I had long, wild hair, wore no makeup, wore ugly, out of style clothes that were too big, and generally was just incredibly awkward. Yet I tried very hard to be included with the cool girls because we all played hockey together. I never fought back against their bullying and instead, to my bullies' delight, would simply try harder to be included whenever I was picked on. If they made fun of my clothes, the next day I'd wear something completely different. If they made fun of the way I talked, I'd talk differently. I'm sure it was an endless source of delight for them to see what they could make me do next in my desperate attempt to be included. My desperation and general weirdness made me a very easy, fun target. My parents ended that particular heck for me by pulling me off the team after I returned from a tournament and burst into tears when they asked me how it was. I moved shortly after to a different school. Now me wants to go back and hug old you. Then come back and hug now you for putting into words exactly what my junior high school experience was like. Today, even as adults I hear people say I don't like her, she tries too hard, and I am like, so make it freaking easier on her, and stop being such a closed judgmental cuntrag. My voice was really high pitched until I was 15, so that made me a target for all the older kids in my German class. After telling multiple teachers and school officials about the taunting and physical abuse I was experiencing, the bullying finally ended after I retaliated physically against my bullies. I hope you screamed in German while doing it. Private school, was overweight, nerdy and poor, as in middle class with all the kids from the richest families. Ended when I threw a kid who was bullying me at a glass door and, contrary to movies, he didn't go through. You just didn't throw him hard enough, dude. Good job though. I didn't go with the fads. I didn't wear makeup. And I was a late bloomer who didn't stop blooming so quickly, went from an A to DD. Was ridiculed mercilessly. Threatened to be beaten up, attacked in the hallways. It was really hard. I suffered severe depression and contemplated suicide a lot since I was 12. I thought things would be better in college and they were marginally. Instead of thinking I was stuffing my bra, people accused me of getting implants. People are buttholes. I just suffered through it. I wasn't able to get it to stop. One of my parents was a county prosecutor and helped convict a child molester. His kids and wife weren't real happy about it. The wife encouraged the kids to target me and make me pay for what my parent had done. I was terrorized by them for a couple of years until one of the girls went to juvie and the other just got tired of messing with me. I think she eventually realized that it made her look bad to her friends, BC she couldn't really tell them why she hated me. It was easier to leave me alone so she could keep quiet about her dad. I let it go at that. She and I were never friends but had some friends in common in high school. We just treated each other cautiously casual, like an unspoken let's just not go there. I can understand that she was in 6th grade, pressured by her mother and older sister, and didn't want to acknowledge what her dad had done. I just wanted the bullying to stop and it did. I don't need an apology. I had enough other bullies for being fat and weird. I was just glad to have one less target on me. I think you acted very generously by not telling everyone what her dad did after she bullied you. That's a really high moral ground for a child, even for an adult. I was a girl who wore exclusively t-shirts and men's jeans. Still do, except at work. I was kind of awkward. Still am, but I hide it better, and I took a long time to grow into my facial features. They used to call me vagina face. The only thing that stopped the bullying to my face was physical retaliation. I know though that I was still frequently talked about behind my back. Things have a way of getting back to you. I was a tomboy. I was bullied pretty much exclusively by girls. Through both. I was told I would never be loved. I would be alone forever. I was ugly and horrible, etc. Every day, in high school, there was a club of girls that was dedicated to wanting me dead, hoping I would kill myself, harassing me at school and online, stealing and hiding my crap, physically harassing me. It could have been a lot worse, but it didn't feel great. I tried to report it in middle school, but the principal's reaction was to tell me I was pretty and not to worry about it. So, truth be told, I just waited. In high school, eventually the girls got bored, I guess. I was always a fat quiet kid, so I was an easy target. That all ended in 8th grade when I hit an enormous growth spurt over the summer and hit 6 feet tall. Funny that they ran out of things to say. Definitely had a fair share of bullies in junior high. I wasn't the weird kid, but I was definitely odd. Still, by all accounts, probably a little odd. For instance, my boss last week looked at me and called me a weird dude out of the blue. How I solved it? I'm not saying this is the right way, but on our jungle gym we had this metal frame house looking thing. Large enough for people to fight in and everyone else could climb on it to block the view of the inside. Needless to say, a fight club got started and I was a very active participant. I didn't always win, but was always down to participate. Said bullies stopped coming after me once they realized I had no issue with fighting. Was fun until we all got in quite a bit of trouble for it. Bro, you broke the first rule. I was dirt poor and socially awkward. I had been picked on even in elementary school, and it gave me a lot of issues that I carry to this day. Mainly, I get into a panic once people start fricking with me, making whatever response I try to provide always a massive failure, creating a feedback loop. I've basically been wholly unable to fight back or defend myself verbally my entire life, with rare exceptions, and people hated me out of the sport of it. Because it was an easy way to make themselves look better. I ended it by not going to school. I had a pretty good home life, lots of friends, partied constantly. My issues were purely in school, and so I just didn't go. Went to a BD school in 8th grade and was expelled 4 times in high school, once on purpose, and got my GED. Color of my skin. Fat Polish dude always punched, shoved, made fun of me. Just typical Ashat behavior. One day I snapped and punched him back in the face. Obviously he beat me up, but that was it. You have to stick up for yourself. It's scary and you probably will get your butt kicked, but it's better than living in fear every single day of high school. Just posted on another comment that I had a similar experience growing up. I lost the fight, but there was no bullying afterwards. I was picked on for basically being poor. I was doing a COOP program to earn college credits and still go to high school. This one frick would always say mean crap to me for wearing the same clothes 2 days in a row and having crappy shoes. I could take the verbal stuff, but one day he shoved me into the locker and I busted my face on it, and I knew I needed to stop it now because it was just getting worse. He was walking to bathroom, and I grabbed the biggest textbook I could find in my locker, which was my college anatomy book for my nursing. I walk in, found him washing his hands, and just hit him as hard as I could with it. He fell to the floor and I got on top of him and just started choking him. Something about that moment made me the ugliest person I've ever been. All the pent up anger towards my drug addicted parents and my anger I had towards me depression just went all towards his neck. Looking back, I could have killed him, but I didn't because a teacher pulled me off. If she hadn't, I may have, but after that he would never look at me again and actually everybody was a lot nicer to me. Hey, I hope things have improved since then and I think you did what you had to do by standing up for yourself. Hope you have a great weekend. I was picked on relentlessly by one guy, beginning in the 6th grade. He enlisted others, including people who had been my good friends before, and it continued through middle school and into high school. I was chubby, husky according to my clothing sizes, and shy, and nerdy, into sci-fi and Star Trek, and I was an easy target. There was never any threat of physical violence, it was all psychological warfare, but it was effective, and it sucked. Basically, I dealt with it by graduating high school and going to college. I had this happen. They are all frick ups now. I was a target for a pretty simple reason. Boobs. They arrived quickly and well ahead of schedule. The hate was real. It went on like that for a while. It stopped for an equally simple reason. Boobs. Once the guys my age started noticing why the other girls hated me, it turned into girl with boobs versus mean other girls. Took a few years to cool down the hatred, but it eventually went from constant everyday torment and constant threat to just ignoring my existence, which was fine with me. The cold shoulder routine went on all through high school. Family was poor. We moved to a nicer part of town because my mom happened to find a really cheap house on the market from a motivated seller. So I started grade 7 in an all-white school. I was one of 2 non-white kids there. Racism was pretty bad. People just yelled slurs outright in the hallway, even with teachers standing right there. Plus we were poor. I went to school every day in grubby hand-me-downs and clothes from the thrift store bargain bin. And since my mom was a working single mother, I had to dress myself every day. I had absolutely no sense of style or coordination, so I'd show up with purple corduroy pants and a brown and yellow striped shirt. It was awful. I eventually overcame it by grade 9 by becoming the class clown. There was nothing I wouldn't say or do to get a laugh. I even told a teacher to frick off one day, just to get a reaction from the students. The teachers hated me anyway, so it couldn't get any worse. The strange thing was, kids only liked me when I was being an absolute idiot. Nobody wanted to be my friend otherwise. I had about 3 friends in the whole school who would talk to me now and then, but nobody was inviting me to their birthday or anything. In high school, I turned into a metalhead. Long hair, ripped jeans, Iron Maiden t-shirts, and I strutted around with headphones on all the time. Plus, I was back on the other side of the tracks again, so I fit right in. I went to school every day in grubby hand-me-downs and clothes from the thrift store bargain bin. This is something I like about having school uniform in schools in the UK. You all have to wear the same clothes, so nobody gets bullied for having cheaper, less fashionable clothes, although they'll find something else to bully you for. Fat, poor, like really poor. Not having electricity and water, so it was obvious how poor I was. Bad body odor due to no hot water. Nerd. And I have a lisp. It got better in high school because I lived with my dad, so we had food and water, and in general, was pretty stable. I was still a fat nerdy girl with a lisp though. It ended when I graduated and moved across the country. I like being alone now. Like other people, being a nerd, I also look like your stereotypical nerd from TV. The biggest issue was that I had glasses since the 3rd grade, so it pretty much started there and went throughout high school. When I went to school, at the end of high school, maybe 5 other people out of 1,000 people in my school had glasses. I realize it's more common now to wear glasses, but I do think the introduction of computers into our lives is a correlation. I also have muffins, and was very tall compared to the rest of the students, and very thin. I tried ignoring it. I tried talking to teachers. I tried fighting back. I learned that none of it works, despite what you might hear. Not that it can't work per se. Rather, I think a lot of solutions towards bullying is geared towards people who aren't at the lower end of the societal ladder. Those at the bottom rung, though, I learned through personal experience, are screwed, no matter what. If you ignore bullies, they bully more to provoke. If you tell teachers, they bully more because of a snitches get stitches attitude. If you fight your bullies and lose, you get bullied more because you're now an easier mark. If you fight your bullies and win, they'll come back in a bigger group to fight you, or they'll try to provoke you in front of teachers, so that you appear as the bad guy. One other major lesson I learned was that the typical bully isn't like your John Hughes Hollywood bully. To an extent, everyone is a bully, especially when you're at the bottom rung. There's no camaraderie between nerds. Even in social groups, there is a pecking order, and if you're the one who's being bullied, you better believe that even other bullied kids will join in to bully you, because at least then, they're not the ones who are currently being bullied. The other thing is teachers, as well as adults, often look the other way, especially when it's a cool popular kid doing the bullying. Worse, they sometimes join in, not like fighting, but they'll berate you, or hold you responsible for your situation, while exonerating the bullies. What finally changed was I changed schools during my junior year. Yeah, I still looked like a nerd, but the social pecking order had already been defined at my new school by that point, and I became an invisible outsider. At that point, I figured just embrace that aspect, as it's better than where I was. I was bullied all the way to high school. I'm not sure what made me a target to begin with. Honestly, I just got that short straw. Kids made up terrible stories about me to pick on me with all the time. I'd randomly get beat up. Crap sucked. The summer before high school, I decided that if they're going to bully me, it's gonna be on my terms. I purposefully wore the craziest outfits to school every day all throughout high school. I was that goth girl. Kids asked if I worshipped the devil. I'd say yes in a serious but tone, and that kept some people away. Others would make fun of my clothes all the time. Didn't bother me, though. That was the point. Eventually I stopped giving a frick about what anyone thought. By my junior year, a bunch of the popular kids even accepted me and everyone just kind of left me alone. I never really expected it to work so well. I entered the school halfway through grade 8. A few of the girls liked me and after 2 weeks, the school moved me to the enrichment class. Stereotypically, I wasn't really into sports, so I was a classic target, sold by sending cops to their home telling them we were ready to press charges. And when the school year finished, after the summer I went to the high school whose district boundary stopped 3 blocks from me rather than go to the school where everyone from that grade 8 class was going. A lot of people targeted me because of my eating disorder. I was sickly looking and people just couldn't help themselves, I guess. I was still told I was fat or I was shamed for being so thin. They were honestly relentless. I didn't necessarily put a definite end to it, but I did own it. I started doing oral reports about anorexia and bulimia and binge eating disorders so that people could actually be educated. I figured that if people knew the actual physical and emotional pain I was already going through, it might let up a little, or at least help them to learn something. Eventually, it worked and it also helped me to feel better about myself as well. I think that this could work with a lot of other things too. A lot of the time I think bullying is a product of people being misinformed, and oral presentations were a great way to prove people wrong, educated my peers' teachers, and to show them that I was a lot stronger than their words. My mom was a prescription drug addict known to act erratically, and she later killed herself. I grew up being a bit socially stunted from all the antics. Not to mention I also grew into a woman's body very young, so I was teased about that especially in middle school. TBH, I just got attractive and took up interest in adventure sports after high school. Now I'm happy, more well adjusted from the confidence they gave me, and my life is pretty dang cool. So I guess I just grew into myself. I was lucky. My mom was the same way. It has occurred to me that this kind of upbringing does come with not being well socialized. I definitely suffered for it, but I think I ended up okay. At least I know how not to act. Bullied for being eccentric and gay. I'm sorry to say, I ended it by becoming really mean, often preemptively to people who hadn't even done anything. Took me a long time to break that habit. I was fat and poor. I didn't clean myself well and my clothes were dirty and reused. I was forced into Boy Scouts in 6th grade but hated it. I was bullied throughout middle school and some high school. Eventually I started smoking pot and dressing better and people became friendlier. Sounds a lot like me. I was the gay kid who hated sports, loved teachers, into theater, and had still kind of do a higher pitched voice. Everyone bullied me, called me names, forgot me. My second semester of freshman year I was tired of not having friends that I finally bucked up and made my own. I invited myself to sit at this guy's table for lunch because I was lonely and wanted a new table. They said yes and became my friends. 1 year later, I met a guy and came out. After that, I was completely out to everyone, and because I was completely open and owned my gayness, everyone just kind of shut up, went away, and I made a whole new group of friends. I'm still good friend with one of the guys to this day. Growing up in Detroit I had a lazy eye, strabismus, as a kid, eye patches, glasses and weird stuff that never worked. Got teased, bullied, beat up. Even grown-ups tended to treat me like I was retarded. It was ruthless and endless. Last day in the neighborhood, literally moving out of state that afternoon, I went up to the bully down the street and hit him in the face with a brick. The blood and look of fear on his face changed me in an instant. New state. Switched from using my middle name to my first name to the surprise of my family. Joined football team at new high school. From day one I was aggressive, rude, crude and almost violent in practice and games. I took all my rage and put it into the game. Off the field I was known for being kind and compassionate and always sticking up for the underdogs. And when my teammates were the ones being bullies I shamed them into being nicer. The only reason this worked was because my teammates saw me as a crazy as heck violent monster and the picked on kids saw me as legit cause of my goofy eye. Growing up in Detroit, that's all you had to say, man. Target because I was tall, but I was also shy and not social. Apparently that made me a target. Hey, look how awesome I am. I can annoy and socially outcast this tall guy relentlessly and I come out on top. I must be so strong. Ended it by, well, waiting. Bullied in grad school and middle school, but high school was better, and college was almost completely devoid of bullying of any kind. Great and refreshing. I still feel a bit bitter that the whole bullying is bad and there needs to be a national outcry and serious movement against it. Didn't happen back when so many kids were being bullied all throughout the 90s. And even now it only focuses on minorities, as if straight white kids don't get bullied. But reducing bullying by any amount is good, and I'll take what I can get for the benefit of those bullied. I was a fat asthmatic nerd who stupidly also managed to let it slip that I had one testicle shortly into the 8th grade due to testicular torsion. I guess I was an easy target when you consider all those things. I was kind of awkward and weird. See, nerd. I got bullied pretty consistently throughout my school time, but it definitely peaked in junior high. It all just kind of petered out by sophomore year. People just started liking me and moving on. I never really did much to fight it, sadly. But overnight by freshman year most people stopped bothering me and most even liked me despite not having many friends prior to that. I was overweight, a nerdy girl, obviously poor, and I smelled like cigarettes. My parents smoked indoors, so I smelled like cigarettes constantly. I also was depressed because of a hard home life. My bullying actually made me worse than better. I developed an aggressive personality and pretty much gave myself the bad girl vibe. I would confront anyone who had anything negative to say about me, physically and verbally. Obviously other things contributed to my persona, but bullying really shaped my personality. In middle school I was the exact opposite. I was shy and quiet. I was teased constantly for my need of second-hand clothes and for my financial situation. Teachers would publicly humiliate me for the cigarette smell. I started skipping classes, school in general, because I didn't want to deal with any of it. By the end of middle school, I had enough and I broke a boy's nose for being the worst of all of them. Nobody bothered me those last weeks, so I realized what I had to do. I had a hard time getting out of this loop, and I still catch myself wanting to physically correct a situation. It worked for me. Even though it was the bad way of dealing with bullying, it did teach me to stand up for myself, not bury my head in the sand and hope the problems go away. I get what you're saying. I got a reputation as a scrapper when I would slap the crap out of some mouthy mean girl. Boys seemed to get a pass and rewarded for fighting back. I just got further excluded and ridiculed. I was a small guy. I got my butt kicked. Started getting smart and confident. Started talking crap back. Got my butt kicked. Got tired of getting hit in the face. Learned the signs. Ducked. Knocked the sucker out. Arm locked in close. Swing with body. Big talkers have glass jaws. That being said, hit the butthole in the jaw. Didn't go down. Don't fight fair. Fight to win. Hit the dong and dip. Don't start fights. End them. My dad was small but he could fight, and if he lost he'd keep going after the guy. People quickly learned it wasn't worth fricking with him. I was a Asian kid in a culture where Asian boys are seen as strange aliens that aren't regular humans. This is USA BTW. I didn't stand up for myself because I had a fricked up life with sexual, physical and mental molestation and violence and abuse from my family my entire life growing up. Low self-esteem, lack of respect, fear of standing up for myself since growing up my dad would best me up to stop me from crying, waking up to my brother beating the crap out of me, so bullying didn't bother me too much. Bullying in school really wasn't anything too bad compared to what I went through in home. but I had a couple of times where I almost beat the frick out of this one bully and put a different bully in a chokehold. I always had a pen in my pocket in case I ever felt threatened. I'd have a weapon to defend myself with. It's whatever, this was a while back and you wouldn't even think that I had a fricked up life if you saw me now. Other than think it's strange I never talk to my family. One thing I noticed equals bullies are kids who do it because they think it makes them better than you. I can't hate anyone more than I hate my dad and brother anyways. I'm so sorry for everything you went through. I hope things are better now and you are able to perhaps get some professional counseling. No kid should have to go through what you went through at home. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.